about Tom's stuff, how he does the drills and, all the video breakdowns online on his Facebook group. And obviously, everybody else that's involved with the group, I think fits in Weaver's wheelhouse as far as what he's doing currently. But I thought maybe it'd be a good time for him just to kind of introduce, what he's doing. And then I think that might help everybody in the group kind of ask questions about, how he can support all the stuff that we're doing, actually.
Okay, Mike, take it away. Tell us a bit about yourself first.
But be careful, though. He'll talk for a long time. So I'm going to put myself on mute, but just settle down.
Mike, do you know Tim Bothwell?
Tim? Hell yeah.
He's here now. He's joined us.
Hey, Weave.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Long time no see.
I know. I love getting back to everything. I was just at the Montreal Canadiens versus Edmonton Oilers, basically a game that they've been talking about forever, alumni association. So it was pretty cool to kind of get hanging out with the guys again, and it was pretty special. I obviously the game that we play is just so amazing, and we just the emotional that everybody puts behind everything is pretty amazing. But kind of a little bit very briefly about kind of my path. It was very kind of a difficult path along the way, but I was back in Bramley Blues back in Chinguzi days, and all the teams basically I played for don't exist. So if any of the GMs found that out, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want me on their team, because I basically demolished teams. So I started off in Chinguzi, Brampton Maroons back in the day. That doesn't exist. Chinguzi minor hockey doesn't exist. Went to would have been Richmond Hill Vaughan Kings. That kind of exists now. They're separated. So there's two teams now, associations. And then I went to Thornhill Islanders Junior A Tier 2. That doesn't exist. Bramley Blues Tier 2 again. That doesn't exist. Then I went to Orlando Solar Bears. I got to get my Orlando Solar Bears hat. So Orlando Solar Bears, that was the last year of the IHL. Signed with Atlanta Thrashers. Went to Michigan State for 4 years. Signed with Atlanta Thrashers. So Orlando Solar Bears in the IHL doesn't exist anymore, but now it exists in the ECHL. And then in the International Hockey League doesn't exist. We ended up going to Chicago Wolves. That's one of the first teams that does exist. And then from there I ended up going. Well, I played with LA for 2 years, Vancouver for 1, St. Louis for 2. 4 years with Florida Panthers, 4 years with Atlanta Thrashers, and 2 years a year and a half with the Montreal Canadiens. So it was, I would never have thought I would have had such a long career, and I met some amazing coaches along the way. But one of the things I was always preparing for after, because a lot of players don't prepare for after. They always think that, oh yeah, they're going to play next year. And then all of a sudden you just don't have preparation. So that's kind of what I was doing the whole entire. I developed a coaching platform called Coach Them, which is pretty cool. We have 13,000 coaches on there. We have the women's national team, Hockey Canada. They were using it. That's congratulations to them. And we ended up, we have a bunch of national teams. It's been pretty amazing being able to support hockey with the coaches, but then I also have my hockey school called Defense First. So I support teaching the players. So it's been amazing giving back to the amazing, great game of hockey and all the lessons that it teaches you, prepares you for real life. So
I have to interject, Weave, after that long introduction. Are the Montreal Canadiens on their way to being extinct as well?
No, I'm going to say if I was to look at that, like obviously they had a good run, and it was obviously you got the amazing goalie Carey Price, who honestly I gave up scoring on him in practice. Honestly, like I just literally threw it at him. I didn't even bother trying. He knew exactly where you're shooting every single time, and that's kind of what Montreal Canadiens relied on every year was Carey Price being healthy, being able to make the stops. They didn't really build up their defensive core. Obviously, they have a select few guys that are pretty awesome, but I'm going to say that's why I named my hockey school defense first, because that you have to build a very good defensive core in order to take a lot of the heat off your goalie. You can't expect your goalie to save every shot. Wally, you're muted.
Mike, do you know Daryl Belfry?
I do not. No.
Okay. Well, he's been a guest on this show, and he's sort of the guru of, I think, the technical guru of the game today. He works with Toronto on a full-time basis. He's got all kinds of super player clients like Crosby and all the stars, Marner. They work with him privately, and he shared a video with me yesterday. I sent it out to all the Sharks today, and I just added your name to the list, Mike. You won't get it, but I will send it to you because it's it might be polar opposite to what you do. But let's find out more about what you're doing and pick your brains a bit on what it's bringing to the game. Go ahead.
So you want me to go ahead with what talking about?
Well, you've got a site.
With
defense
with
first.
Coach Dabney you're talking about?
Yeah, well, and I didn't want to relate to Daryl Belfry, but when you see the video that he's put out of his daughter and breakdown of the way she plays, it might make you shudder, because I agree with you. You've got to play defense, but he's taking the game to a different level relative to defensemen being involved in the offense. So I'm just curious about, where you're at and the kinds of resources you've got and what's on the site.
Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, I'm not saying defense playing defense. Like
Okay.
defense now, to be honest, going backwards as a defenseman, to be honest, it's kind of getting away from that. Being able to surf towards a guy going offensively. I'm going to say a good defensive core would be obviously a guy that is able to maintain a presence in front of the net, being able to transition from defense to offense is huge. And I think having our defense in the play at all times is absolutely massive. I'm not saying defense is what it traditionally was. You could look at the Lightning as a perfect example. They are moving forward a lot more than they're moving backwards as defensemen. They are stopping the plays before it even comes out of the offensive blue line. So yeah, so that's kind of how that is. But my coaching platform, I developed it when I had my hockey school, and I felt it very tedious to go and draw drills every single time. So I ended up going and getting a team of a couple developers. My major was telecommunication. I got a minor in virtual reality, software development, web design. So I was designing websites when I was playing. So when I was playing in the NHL, I was going to local businesses asking them if they wanted their site redesigned. So I would go, because I was always preparing. I'm 5'9" defensive defenseman. So I ate pucks for a living, and I was always preparing for the next venture. And I just found that with my hockey school, it was very tedious to go and draw drills, because how many times you guys draw drills every single, you draw your favorite drill probably about 10 times a season, if not more. So I just said, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. I have a booklet of all my drills on a piece of paper that is cut out, and I was copying and pasting. I felt like I was in kindergarten again. So I ended up developing Coach Them. It's completely web-based. I broke down all the barriers of what it used to be, being only on one platform. I think we were ahead of the time before even, I think 2017 we're developing it. And this is before a lot of businesses went online, cloud-based platforms. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You're able to go on your iPad, be able to draw the digital pencil. We got some amazing features that we're releasing. We're really blowing it up. And one of the biggest things is I want to go and make it easy. So we have like 570 drills now. A lot of drills are all on our Instagram account. So our Instagram account is Coach Them. And any single one of those drills that you go and see with videos are all right on Coach Them. I'm going to say that, sure, technology, animation is cool. It takes too long to draw a drill. I'm going to say video. I don't think video will ever be replaced, because seeing the little tendencies of a coach and how he's coaching it during practice, or seeing the players, those little different details, I think it will be is always going to be there.
Mike, tons in common with one of our buddies here in Calgary, Tom Malloy, who's on. Tom's been working really, Tom, how long? Like 30 plus years on exactly the same kind of thing, Mike. He's got a tremendous base of drills, all digitized and cataloged, and his coaching ABC. So you and Tom, who's on with us, have a lot in common.
Yeah, I think I have about 1,500. I steal from everybody.
So now
that's a lot of drills.
He's attacking your website next, Mike, to steal whatever you have that he doesn't have. But feel free to do the same, Rob.
Well, sharing is caring. Honestly, that's one thing that when I was developing it, I wanted to be able to share it digitally and not have to go and print off a PDF, or I have my assistant coaches bring their cell phone right on the ice. I just make sure that the parents know that they're not doing a Facebook status update, that they're actually checking their practice plans. So it's completely web-based. We have some of our power users, like Kitchener Rangers. They basically said, if you are not using Coach Them, you're not coaching this association. And you can see with the stats. So we basically track every single time a coach logs in, how many drills they've created and how many plans they've created. So we've created kind of, instead of the old school way of giving a team to a coach and letting them basically kidnap this team and hijack it, they are being accountable, because the director of hockey or player development, they can't be in every single place. So being able to see them is absolutely huge. So Tom, I would love to get in touch with you and see what we could do. So
sure. Like what I did, what motivated me, first of all, I was coaching the women at Montreal. I was also teaching the hockey class. So, it was a really good resource for the hockey class. And then being in Calgary with the national teams practicing and teams from all over the world practicing at WinSport and then the Flames. And I would try to write down a drill, like when they're doing it, then all of a sudden the coach would change it. Say, damn, where did they start from, or where did they go? So I just started taking 2-minute videos of things and then figuring it out after. And then do a diagram of it and a description that I can put on a practice plan that I send to my players and coaches, and they all have video on them. So that's kind of the format I use.
Well, that's amazing. Like what I've found has been amazing. Like we have 23,000 coaches on our Instagram account. And one thing that I found was amazing was we were doing the same. We were going, a few of our, we call them teammates, basically people that are associated with Coach Them, that use our platform, that we work with them to gather obviously all their videos. So what they do is they'll go and post a video, we'll take the video and we'll go and re-engineer it, and kind of like what you're doing, Tom. put it into a drill and attach the video right into the drill. And we put it right on our marketplace. And then we go and put that right on all our social media. And it's like, how about this? Like, I'm going to say that, sure, there might be several different ways of doing the same thing, but the core drills are out there. And obviously there's going to be some creativity here and there of different things. And I'm going to say a lot of our coaches have absolutely loved being able to just scroll through the drills right on Instagram and being able to go right into Coach Them, and they have all their drills right there that they can add to their practice plan.
Mike, I'd like to interject if I could. Daryl Belfry is on. I'm not sure if Daryl is going to interject or not. Maybe next week we can get him on with you. But once you look at the video link and the article Daryl wrote that I shared, I really think, like, I'm going to be a devil's advocate here on drills. I evaluate, coaches for high performance coaching, and I have seen very few coaches run a drill that accomplishes its purpose. And everybody seems to be a drill stealer. And in minor hockey, especially, they steal drills beyond the ability and try to apply them beyond the ability of the kids they're coaching. And so coaches become drill stealers, not drill designers, drill creators, drill adapters to suit their needs. And in fact, I would think what Daryl would say is deliberate drills are sort of gone the way of the dodo bird. The conventional horseshoe, rush drills, regroup drills, and the depth of and scope of thinking and decision making in a deliberate drill is too narrow. So any drill that can have thinking, decision making built into it will take that performance to a higher level. I'm not sure if that makes sense, Mike, but can you comment on what I've said relative to what you're doing?
Well, I'm going to tell you, yes, sure, that's great to have a plan, and Hockey Canada has a plan that all these coaches are supposed to follow. But I'm going to tell you what I have found with talking to all these coaches, that they don't have time. They're not getting paid. It's not their first job. Like with me, I was getting paid in the NHL to go and train. So that's what I did all day long. But these coaches are parents that have their own jobs. And to be honest, that is maybe 5% of their life is going to be coaching a team, or 10% of their life is going to be coaching a team. So I'm going to say that it's all about time and effort needed. And a lot of our coaches that first come to us, it's a different way of doing it. And they've always thought, just writing on a piece of paper and get it done. So I've actually done some tests with my assistant coaches. I'm like, hey, go and do whether you use Coach Them or whether you do whatever you do, go and create a practice plan. I've had coaches coming, drills written on a piece of paper. And the one thing is, it's all about time and effort on this. And if they would have gone and redrawn this drill right on Coach Them, once you draw it once, it's there for life. And then from there, they're able to go and add it to practice plan very easy. It's all about time and energy for these coaches. So getting back to kind of what you're saying, yes, it's good to go and take a drill and be like, okay, my team it's a little bit different. Maybe they're a little weaker in this area. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to redesign the drill and be able to, cater to it. A lot of the parents, coaches don't have time for that. And the one thing, if they do have a few minutes, they are able with Coach Them, they're able to take a drill and they're able to go and really redesign it in maybe 5 minutes, that they're able to cater to a little bit more to what they're doing. But and Mike Benelli, he has his hand up, but he is a perfect example of this. And Benelli, I would personally like you to take your video up because you're driving.
I'm just listening. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm pulling over. No, but real quick about Mike Wally, because that's I think Daryl's philosophy and a lot of the people on the call's philosophy. I think, and Mike actually picked up on this years ago, but really in the last year, that's a real focus of what he does with the Coach Them series. Is he has a thing called the Creation Series, which is all about the why. Like, why are you doing this drill? Why, this? Okay, you see a drill on Instagram, but how does it relate to your team? Is it a drill that is worthwhile? And can you turn it into a progressionary piece where at the youth hockey level, to Mike's point, where we have, you don't have professional coaches that get to really think all day about how they're going to work with their kids, is can we give you a cheat sheet to help you find progressionary drills to solve the problems you have? And then he didn't even mention it, but I'm sure you can, Mike. It's just the hundreds and hundreds of games that are on there too, from a small area game perspective, and the why of why you're doing the game. Not just, okay, it's 3-on-3 cross ice, and if you read Daryl's book and had followed him, that's a lot of that piece, right? It's like, okay, well that's great, but why are you doing it? And then what are the limitations you're putting in there to make the kids think? A lot of that intellectual property is on Coach Them, which is great.
Yeah, so just a little bit background on Benelli and Mai's Creation Series. It's every month, it's monthly, and we basically come up with what is needed to be taught in practice, and then we go and reverse engineer that and come up with break down the ins and outs of that technique. But we create a couple progressionary drills, and we share it right with Coach Them. The Creation Group series. So there's actually a folder within Coach Them that we share all those drills. So we have about 300 coaches that are part of this Creation series that have followed us, and they get automatically entered into this folder that they're able to see all the plans that we create during the series.
Okay, Mike, I just want to get back to the you say the parent, the volunteer coach. There's sort of a category of coaches like AA, AAA, Bantam. They are paid, but they're working at other full-time jobs. In certification and coach education, your volunteer coaches would be in Canada, Coach 1, Coach 2, which would be community minor hockey, no AA or AAA. If you're going to do a competitive hockey, you have to get into a Development 1 course here in Canada, in Alberta. If you're going to coach college hockey or junior hockey, you've got to probably get into Development 2. And then beyond that, you're looking at being a paid full-time coach doing the kind of work that you're doing. And I know Daryl's listening, and I listened to Daryl's talk last week, which I believe it's a monthly talk. And I wanted to interrupt because there are coaches on there, I think, that I could be wrong. They may be doing drills, but I would tell them, and I would say, in novice hockey and in Atom hockey and Pee Wee hockey, if you can't apply drills appropriately, just play games. And Tom Malloy's saying is, let the game teach. So small area games, to me, are what volunteer minor hockey coaches have to get into. And they have to be able to let the kids learn themselves. So I really believe that. I think the deliberate drills that are being done to teach skills and develop skills, and then deliberate drills to teach tactics and team plays in minor hockey. You got a 10-year-old Atom team practicing a deliberate breakout. I watch it on the weekend, and the kids can't even skate yet, pass yet. So all I'm saying is, I'm an advocate of a game guy. I don't plan practices, and I don't coach anymore, so I really shouldn't talk to this, but I'm a kind of a person yet that doesn't go to a teaching board. I design a drill. I have a plan in mind, and I go with it, and I feel comfortable with it. But minor hockey coaches, to me, and I'm not sure how young an age level your site is applicable to and works effectively for. But I just wanted to share that idea of letting the game teach, because now when I have high performance coaches, AA, AAA, college, and I watch them run a drill and I ask them about what are they trying to accomplish and are they really accomplishing it, they aren't. They just don't understand it. And these are coaches of AA and AAA teams where they need to learn that. And drill design was part of our coaching education, Mike, before you were born, I believe. In the Dave King era, that's what we did. We analyzed skill, we broke down skills, we designed drills, we built them up, we progressed them, we regressed them, we did all those kinds of things. That's an art. And I just wanted to throw that out at you relative to where, you know, I seem to be coming from. And I think that the game is going to more decision making in drills than deliberate drills. There is a line between deliberate and random, and I don't know if your drills deal with that aspect of it, but I think there's a major academic line to cross where you can practice deliberate drills and repeat them and get so good at them, and then they don't happen in team play because you've never done them in a game like drill and a game like situation. So sorry for going on.
So basically, like our drills are obviously marketplace. You make the decision to put them in your practice plan or not. So we provide every type of drill, station-based drills. Benelli has an amazing St. Louis night of skills station-based drills. I think it's pretty epic. It's pretty cool that he takes real game situations and he puts it into small station drills, which is it's amazing what he did with that. But yeah, so like all the drills are basically whatever you want to do is you know, it's there for you. So
super. Yeah. Sammy, what do you think? Kim McCullough's raised her hand. Kim is another expert. Kim, please introduce yourself. Everybody on the panel knows you. Mike doesn't. And
I know Kim. I know Kim.
You're on. Go ahead.
I know everybody, Wally. Come on.
I know.
Well, Daryl had his hand up first.
Everybody.
Daryl had his hand up first, so I don't know if he wants to jump in before I do. He's probably driving between rinks or.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I have a little bit of time. I had just one comment, but ladies first.
That's the second time I've been called a lady this week, and I don't know. I still don't think it's necessarily true. Yeah, I mean I've used Mike's stuff, and I've used all the different drill draw type of softwares, and I think it's great. And I think, you know, now that we've implemented this, Mike will probably know the numbers, but I can't remember off the top of my head how many of our coaches are using it. I'm going to say at least 15 of our 30 rep coaches are using it. And I'm finding it useful as the director of coach and player development. I think you have to establish some foundational skills across the board in your association, and you can't do that without some foundational drills that everybody uses and is capable of teaching, right? So to your point, I'm capable of teaching a certain thing because I've been doing it for so long. How do I get, you know, to, as Mike said, you know, some guy who's a lawyer by day who has 10 minutes to prepare for practice, how do I get him able to teach that same foundational skill drill? And I think that's, you know, the crux of it all. I think flow drills are fine. I think small area games are great. But if you're not establishing this foundational skill across your entire organization. You're just one year you get Mike as your coach, and the next year you get me, and it's different. And I don't know if that's a sound way of doing it. So having a platform where you can share those things, and also, I mean, this is, I probably stole this from Daryl's book or somewhere else that Daryl pointed me, but like, we've got key principles of play that every team adheres to, irrespective of whether they're U9 or U22 or B or AA, right? We've talked about this at length, right? On these calls: pace, poise, physicality. Those are our three principles, and every coach is expected to communicate about it and teach drills that are, relevant to those areas. And it's my job to make sure that I give them those tools, right? So, coach them. Any other drill, drawing software allows you to do that. I think the video is powerful, but I think if you're just, like Wally said, doing a bunch of drills randomly and drawing them on a napkin, I don't think we're doing any justice to our teams. But, I wonder, and Mike might know this better than I do, in the absence of someone like myself at a hockey association who can bring it all together and establish those principles and establish those foundational drills, I don't know what the solution is, or if you're just hoping that all the coaches get on board or share the same drills. So I'd be curious to know what Mike's experience has been in terms of getting everyone to buy in on a core set of drills or principles that they can teach from.
Well, I would say, Daryl, did you want to go first before I went?
I was just going to kind of tie my thoughts together, that maybe you can comment on all of it rather than, having to maybe repeat yourself. Maybe just give me one chance here to just slip in. I think Wally's right. I think the platform is right. I think that what Kim's talking about is right. I think you're all right in all the different ways. The issue that we have is very few coaches are genuinely capable of moving the needle in any way, shape, or form in terms of skill acquisition, because they haven't taken any time to learn how to teach skill, so they don't know. So to your point, most coaches in the organizations across the country have a day job. They're working. They come home. They got to eat dinner. They have other kids that they got to worry about. They're running around. If they happen to get something written down or even have a thought of what they want to do prior to getting to the practice, they're probably miles ahead of most. Most of these coaches are not planning ahead. That's just the reality of it. So any type of way in which, if you don't know anything and you're first starting, you shouldn't be teaching anything. You should let the game teach. So to Wally's point, let them play. Find a bunch of games, let them play. That's a great thing. Then you move to a platform like what you're talking about, which is where now I have an oasis of I sit down on a Saturday morning and I just go through and I start to educate myself. Because what your drills, in my mind, the best part of your drills in any platform, I've never seen a platform, but I know these types of platforms, and I think the best value is an interested coach can learn about drill design and learn about how to teach through those types of platforms. They say, okay, like, how do you set this up? Because they don't know. So then they start to figure out, okay, how many guys are in that line? And then, oh, I didn't even realize like you could get two guys going in this drill. Okay, that's interesting. So they start to piece this thing together. So inadvertently, or in my mind, where these platforms have a real chance to take off is where it's not inadvertent. It's actually fully expressed coach development, where you're taking them through the process. Hey, if you've only been coaching for 1 year, this is where you need to be. If you've coached for a few years and you're just starting to now like, hey, I can start to teach some drills. Yeah, this is kind of where you need to be. And you can educate them. And then finally you can get up to where, hey, like, these kids need to think, and you can influence the way they think. You can influence the way they move. And now you're at a level where you can get into some higher level stuff. I think that those are where those platforms are. But where the real metal meets the road is what Kim's talking about, where you have a director who's doing just that, directing and saying, hey, they're the expert in the platform or the way in which they want their teams to play. They have a vision for what's going on, and they're they're trying to get their coaches to create as much impact as they can for their skill set. The top and the bottom of it, I would say, and this is going to sound terrible, but I think it's true. Upwards of 80% of coaches who coach, the kids are at a higher level of playing ability than their ability to coach and influence coach. They can't influence skill at a rate that's faster than the kids that they're coaching's ability. I think the number is extremely high of that thing. And that's what Wally said. He goes, watches, and he sees these coaches doing drills that either don't make sense or they're inappropriate or they were stolen without understanding of progression and all that sort of stuff. It's a massive challenge. So what I like about your platform and platforms like it is an opportunity to teach the person who wants to learn. The coach that really wants to learn can get into a platform like that and start really like, well, what about this drill? What about that drill? What's the difference between these two? How come this works this way? How come that works that way? And they start to vet it out. Over time, you can have a massive influence. And then if you have someone like Kim, who's at the top of your organization, who's directing you into the types of things that their eyes should be drawn to, now I really think you have a winning thing. But before that, if the guy comes in, he's like, hey, listen, I want to coach. Or no, I don't want to coach. My kid's just playing. And then they say, listen, we don't have a team unless one of you guys is coaching. So who's it going to be? And that guy's like, okay, I'll do it. Okay, that guy or that girl, you need to just do games. That's it. Because you're not capable of doing much else. So that's what you need to do. And then, oh, I really like this. I'd like to stay with it with my kid. Like, I love doing this. Okay, now you need a platform. And now you can start educating yourself. To me, that's what I think is exciting about some of these platforms. Is I think that there's a real educational opportunity to do it. So that's my soapbox for drill design and the like.
Well, I'm going to say it. Majority of the coaches out there are not getting paid. I would say that. And I would say that Kim, the way that she is done, like I see drills coming in and practice coming in every single day. It's crazy. Every single day I see something. And what she has done with her association is created organization. It's been pretty amazing what they have done. And it takes it's a lot of associations are just desperately, like you were saying, Daryl, desperately just trying to get one coach, one parent to step up to coach. Just like how tough is it to get somebody to step up and be a manager? It's a thankless job, to be honest. And there's so much time and effort that is it's easy to stand up on the bench, right? Easy to show up the game and come up with a lineup. Easy to go and stand on the bench and start barking out orders, right? It's very tough to go and get on that. It's emotionally draining every single time you get on for practice, especially for somebody that doesn't completely know what they're doing. And one of the longest things, if you're a half decent coach, is coming up with a practice plan. That's probably one of the toughest things every day. And a lot of coaches don't realize that you don't have to come up with a magical, like crazy different practice every single time. You could reuse drills, because I'm going to say after your players do it one drill for one practice, the second time they do it, they're gonna master it, just like you said, Wally. But after that, you got to evolve that drill, and you just got to go the next step up and change a couple things so it makes it that they're not being robotic. So what we have found with the associations are they need a Kim. They need somebody that is basically putting in structure amongst the association. Burlington Eagles, another crazy amazing. Corey Locke there is just epic. He even does a monthly meeting, and they even get together. He does on ice sessions with the coaches to walk through. I guess Daryl didn't like what I was saying. Walk through the skills. Like he's showing the coaches how to teach it, because a lot of coaches have no idea. And it basically it's supply and demand, right? Like, hey, we need coaches, right, within our association. So if not, hey, you know what, you want to do this, all you have to do is take a weekend course, right? And yeah, from what I'm understanding, that weekend course is going into, I guess they're splitting it up, so it's going to be like over 3 weeks of courses. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to say no coach is going to want to do that. Get a weekend course, get it out of the way, and see you later, right? But there's only a select few people like Benelli and Kim that are evolving their game as well. They're going to these different sessions and excited to come on this call. Like, I'm excited to come on this call to learn some things, right? Because I'm always looking about improving, but I'm going to say the average coach is not going to be going and hopping on these types of calls, because it's almost like the NHL. I was a part of the NHL Players Association. I was a director. So basically, with every single, not director, but with every single team, there was 2 main guys on every single team that were a part of basically the board, and we basically made decisions on the whole entire thing. A lot of players didn't even want to get involved with that. They're like, because like in 5 years they're going to be done, and what did they have to? These things that are in place didn't really mean anything to them. So they're just like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to be involved. It was impossible getting. They were flying us to like Pebble Beach. They're flying us there with your wife to come and having a spa weekend. Like, it was crazy. They were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get us to. There were like literally like 18 people that came out of 800 people. Like, it's crazy. So it's kind of like almost that these coaches a lot of time are just there to coach their coach along the way, right? And it takes a Kim, or it takes somebody, and a lot of these associations are going to say they don't have a Kim. They have a GM of an association, and they don't have somebody to implement anything. They like, okay, here's your team. See you later. We'll see you next year, right? And there's nobody holding these coaches accountable. So. Oh, Wally, you're muted again.
Tim's got his hand up, so go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to interject. I mean, I agree with I see Daryl's dropped off, unfortunately, but that's okay. I agree with a lot of what has been said, and it's a delicate dance. Like, I think we're going down the wrong road if we say that deliberate drills have no place in hockey. I think we're going down the wrong road. I agree with the premise, that Daryl's premise, that, an idea that if you're a young coach who really doesn't know anything, then maybe your best avenue is to focus on playing small area games because they're fun, because there is some skill development within them, and it does allow the game to teach. Like, with a lot of things, and I've said it a million times before, for me, there's just no black and white in hockey where this is the way it should be, that is the way it should be. It's a delicate balance between, as Kim pointed out, the need for some foundational skills in order to progress as a player really requires some time commitment to enhancing and developing those skills. And that's where deliberate drills come in. And, I think we have to be careful in saying, which is what we sometimes seem to be saying is, really, are we saying that deliberate skill drills are of no benefit unless they're supervised by an expert? I would disagree with that statement. I would say a young coach using Mike's website or using Tom's website that pulls out some skill development drills can use them on his young team, even if he or she, the coach, has no expertise to actually help the players. But the players actually just doing the drills are going to get something out of it physically in terms of their development. So I think we have to be careful in saying that you can't go this way, you must go that way. It's a blend of everything. The thinking drills, the small area games, the skill development, and even some deliberate drills to learn about patterns and everything in hockey. They're all applicable and they all have a place, but it's all about the balance. So there's a lot said there, but. Kim, go ahead if you got your hand up there.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, when you're talking about foundational skills, like you got to implement things that give you the most bang for your buck. Like I'm always challenging our coaches, even our most experienced and highest level coaches, like how few drills can you get the same result with? Like I think we want a billion drills, but if you had one drill, like if I said to you, you only have one drill to teach breakouts with, like you get one drill. You can do a million variations, but I'm only going to give you one drill. And if you could start to think in that way, then, you're not necessarily searching, for the latest and greatest flow drill. You're teaching something foundational. And I always say to my coaches, like there's a 3 practice rule. You've got to run the same practice 3 times in a row. If it's every Monday for 3 weeks or what have you, especially with the girls, like it's all confidence, right? So they run the drill the first time, they have no idea. No one wants to go first. They're all pushing to the back of the line. Eventually the second time, the third time, like they're confident and then they're flying and then they're learning, right? And now they're executing and now they can make decisions. The first time you run a drill, no one can make decisions because they're petrified. The coach is going to yell at them if they screw up the drill, right? And so, to Tim's point, the deliberate drills to me are the skill drills, are the foundational skill drills, right? How we pass properly, how we shoot properly, how we do everything properly, play the body, build a wall, all those things, right? And then you start to put it together into concepts and flow and systems and strategies. I've got one team I work with here that's U15B, which would be the lowest level rep in Ontario. And like just a mishmash of kids picked in COVID, right? No tryouts, no opportunity to see them on the ice. And I just went pure foundational with these kids. Like, the most we've done in terms of system or flow is like 1-on-1, 2-on-1, and 2-on-2 drills. Like no D-zone coverage stand here, no breakout stand here, 0. And it's amazing. Like once they have that foundation of skill, we hammer it home and hammer it home. Everything they do looks better because they pass better and they shoot better and they're winning games 5-6-0. They're in first place. And if you told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have told you were crazy. But I just said to the coach, this is the way we're going to go. We're just going to hammer home skill. And their practices in September look very similar to their practices right now. They're just drills that have progressed. So, I think sometimes we could empower coaches with some basic resources and some of those, those drills that give you the biggest bang for your buck and just teach them how to riff on it. How do you add constraints? How do you add a back checker? How do you add a second puck? How do you add a pass to the coach? Right? And can you take that same drill and evolve it 20 different ways? Absolutely you can. And the kids sometimes think it's a different drill. But I think anyone here who played college hockey, played high level hockey, like I can still tell you the 5 drills we did at Dartmouth every Tuesday on our Tuesday practices for 4 years. They were the same damn drills. Didn't bother me. We had a pretty good team. So I think sometimes, I don't know if that helps you, Mike. It's probably, I don't know if that's the best, selling of your website. You got so many drills, but I think if we can teach coaches how to change drills and modify them to suit their needs, take that small area game and make an advantage situation, disadvantage situation, or add pressure. I think that's the real art of it. And you don't need to have 500 drills. You just need to have whatever Kilray had, right? What do you have, like 6 drills or something they say in his book? If we had that few drills, but you had a million different variations, I think that might be the sweet spot, for coaches who are less experienced, right? Who really need to start to build foundation. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox now. Bye.
Go ahead, Weave.
Well, one of the things I'm going to say I learned the most out of anything was in my friend's dad's backyard. He ended up taking In the wintertime, he'd spray it and he wouldn't go and make it nice and level. Like literally I was going around a tree in order to go for the goal. And the inconsistencies on the ice. Like I remember in the summertime when we're training, some of the ice surfaces in Florida weren't the best. They were like all chippy and everybody, all the guys were complaining. I'm like, why would you complain? I'm like, this is awesome. When that puck bounces, that's great. I would love that, because now when the regular season starts or when training comes, when they have the awesome ice, I've improved myself that much more. So there's a lot of things that like I think scrimmages, I think just getting on the ice, going to even local, like a lot of parents think that you have to go and teach them every single thing. Well, you have an hour and a half practice, right? Maybe twice a week. How, like, you got to encourage your parents. Hey, you guys, if you guys want to go and improve, you guys got to go and do a little bit yourself as well. There's like, you can't go and focus on like all these kids. And, you know, there's a mix of everything. Obviously you want to teach skill, you want to teach teamwork. And as Kim pointed out, not even teaching systems, I think is a really cool. I think that's really awesome that obviously they're the top in the league. So there's something going on. So, so that's kind of what I was going to say. And then Tom, was Tom not on here anymore? Oh yeah, Tom. I just went to your site. If you wanted to, I'll go and convert all your drills, or at least majority of the drills, over to the Coach Dem. You got a big slew of them, and if you wanted to, I'll just put it into your private folder. And if you wanted to, you could completely. The one thing with Coach Dem, I'm all about sharing is caring, and creating groups and talks, and so I created this group that I could provide Tom, I could provide you with a link that anybody is interested in coming on board. You could either put their email address in there, they automatically get an email sent to them inviting them to the group, or we could go and you could send a link out to all the people and they click on it, they would get entered into the group. But you could create a group of coaches that are sharing. So you want to go and share those amazing drills online. Well, the best is you could share the drills, but a person's able to take that drill and put it right into action and put it into a practice plan. So I think the big thing with Coach Dem, it's all about convenience. It's all about being able to take a drill and you don't like it completely. You could take a station-based drill and you could stretch it into a zone-based drill. You're able to go and take a whole bunch of different drills and create a whole entire station-based plan, right? Which you could throw into your practice plan. So there's a lot of things that we're able to do with Coach Dem that does it. And we're all about simplicity. And so Tom, you just let me know.
All right. What I do is I follow the Finnish model. I work with a Finnish coach, and basically everything they do is based on the 4-game playing roles. So when you're on offense, you either have the puck or you're supporting the puck. So that's 2 roles. And when you're in defense, you're either checking the puck carrier or covering away from the puck. So we do, because I'm coaching college, we practice every day. So Monday, we do individual offensive skills. And like I had a skating coach on Monday for half the practice. Tuesday, we do individual defensive skills. Wednesday, we do team offense. And Thursday, we do team defense. That's kind of the theme. But of course, then everything's coded. So our A drills are individual things like puck handling, skating. B is when you're just working with partners, passing, but there's no opposition. So a lot of the flow drills. And then C are against opposition, like 1-on-1, 2-on-1, and all this kind of stuff. And D are games. And then DT are transition games, where it's one puck and players come in and out of the play all the time. And then I have, shootouts and then goaltending stuff. And then for the high level coaches, we go through the same deal, but they're coded T, where there's a lot of instruction. And so the Flames rookie camp, all kinds of things, how to take a puck off the boards and go to the net and this sort of thing. Or T2 is offensive team play. So it's all coded like that. And we go through. So if you follow that, then during the season, you basically cover everything you need to cover. So with little kids, they would do, beginners, they would do A with individual skills and skating, and D probably games, and a little bit of B, just partner passing and all that. That's as far as they'd go. And then you add, as the kids get older, you add things. And then the pros may do the same thing as Pee-wee kids in a drill, but they're not doing to learn how to pass or whatever. They're just doing it to warm up. So it's all, everything is dependent on how good they are. And then like you say, you add things like maybe an extra pass and they have to shoot, but it's got to be a catch and release and this sort of thing. Or you add a defender who's surfing them. They got to go to the net and protect the puck. So that's sort of how everything I've got is coded. So there's a letter on the front of it. So if it's A, that's individual skill. So if it's a B600, B600 means it starts at the 4 blue lines. So there's 4 groups, and so many drills are like that, right? So I can put it down. I know where it starts. I know where the players go right away without writing a whole bunch of stuff, and then just give it a title. And D1 game is full ice with no extra players. D100s with extra players. D2 is a cross ice. So last night we did a D200 game where we start off with a 2-on-2, and then you after you passed, you could pass to one of your a player in the front of the line, and they could join you. And now it's a 3-on-2, and there has to be a pass in between. You just can't keep on passing the player, and it goes up to 5-on-5, and so that's kind of a modification. So I just want to kind of explain the way we everything's organized. And it's coded. And the code was developed by Johanni Wallsten. He was captain of Finland for like 7 years, played in 3 Olympics. He's got a plaque in the Hall of Fame in the IHF wall there. And he's probably the smartest guy I know. But anyways, I just took all those ideas from him. So there's my little 2 bits worth.
Mike Benelli.
Yeah, I love following Tom's stuff too. Anyway, so his stuff's great, and I think the video adding on with the descriptions is phenomenal. I think it's great for any coach. I just wanted to change it up a little, only because we have Tim and Mike on the call. So I want to know, from a tiny little defenseman in NHL's perspective, that Mike was, from Tim, what are some of the things that you saw with Mike? And because we've had these conversations offline, and I love getting into my favorite time is calling Weaver on the way home from like practice with my 14-year-old, just to have him hear Mike talk and just describe kind of the little nuances of what he did as a defenseman to kind of counteract the other team. And I think it's, Wally was alluding to it a little bit earlier with Daryl's study and the stuff he's done with video about, not reacting and going where you're supposed to go, but actually, put yourself in an advantageous situation. So I thought, Tim, maybe you could describe a little bit about what you saw as a coach in Mike, and then Mike can hopefully just talk back to just, why he decided or what forced him to go the route he did as far as his own development and the way he played the game.
That's a thank you for that, Mike. And it's a great question. And very quickly, 4 things come to mind for me about what I felt made Mike a really, really effective player. And I will say, and not just because Mike's on, but I will say I had plenty of scraps with the management in Atlanta defending Mike, because at the time it was still, NHL was still pretty much a big man's game. And, some of the people in management really felt like, how can we be using this 5'9" defenseman? But for me, he was clearly for long stretches, and maybe for the whole time he was in Atlanta, he was our best defenseman in my mind. So like 4 things really quickly come to mind for me with respect to Mike, and I'm not sure what order you might put them in, but one was awareness. He had great hockey sense and just was always taking in information, was aware where people were on the ice, which obviously really enhanced his defensive game and obviously his offensive contribution. But he was an intelligent player, always aware of what was going on around him. Number two, he was as good as anyone I think I've coached or seen play at making a first pass. He rarely, and I mean really rarely, gave up the puck to the other team. Consistently finding somebody to give the puck to help the play keep going for us. So his first pass was exceptional, consistently exceptional and effective. Being a small guy, his body positioning was also exceptional. He was strong in his skates for a little guy, but he was always very conscious of keeping his body in a good defensive positions, so that allowed him to be effective defensively. And I might interject, Cliff Ronning back in the day was also really good that way. Even as he was a great offensive player, he understood that, hey, I'm not as big as some of these guys. I'm not as strong as some of these guys. My body positioning awareness is critical to my survival. Mike had that. So he was really aware of what was going on around the ice. He always, and partly because of that, he consistently made a good first pass. His body position was always very good. And lastly, he competed like hell, even though he was a smaller guy. And those four qualities, to me, obviously are great and applicable to all players, but really, really important to be a good defenseman. And really, you know what? There's another guy we had in Atlanta, and I don't remember, Weave, if you crossed with him or not, but Brian Pothy or Potsy, who's sometimes coached with the U.S. national women's girls. Potsy was another guy I had a lot of battles with the Atlanta management. He was, for me, a very similar type of player. Great first passer, great awareness, really good body position guy, and I loved him as a player. And his rookie year, he was our best defenseman through training camp and early into the season. And all I kept hearing was, "Hey, you're playing him too much. You're playing him too much." And I'm like, "He's our best defenseman. You want me to sit our best defenseman on the bench? Is that what you really want?" So anyway, I had some of those battles with the management there. Don's, of course, done very well for himself and is a really good hockey man, but I didn't see eye to eye on either you or Potsy to a large degree. But anyway, you were a treat to coach, Mike, and I really mean that. And you were a terrific player. It doesn't surprise me you played as long as you did and as effectively as you did.
Well, I'm blushing right now. I'm going to say, though, the one thing, obviously, with every coach, you got to have good assistants, and the good assistants basically kind of almost interact with the players more and almost re-explain kind of what the coaches was saying. So it's something that with every coach you need some a good support staff. So obviously, Tim, you were just amazing. Obviously, answering the questions, because I was always a person that didn't want to just be told what to do, but wanted to understand why I was doing that. And I think that why a lot of people are nervous to ask why. And I think that's something that I was very good at, and just wanted to know exactly the ins and outs of the purpose for everything. I'm going to say one of the really cool things that when we're there for our first year, I signed with Atlanta Thrashers after Michigan State. And we ended up going to the training camp. It was very interesting training camp. I remember I got my first taste of being a rookie. After one of the practices, I came in, I grabbed my phone and I ended up redialing. And back then you had the flip phones, right? Oh my God, that didn't really work half the time. But I ended up just pressing a number that I redialed the same number. And obviously, even back then, I don't think you really knew the phone numbers. And I just pressed the person's name to call them back. And all of a sudden they're like, this is Don Waddell, GM of the Atlanta Thrashers. Please leave a message. I'm like, oh my God. So somebody went into my phone and ended up changing a phone number that I just called to Don Waddell's phone number. So yeah, that was very I would have been very nervous if all of a sudden he picked up the phone. And but I'm going to say one of the amazing things, though, right after training camp, I had a great training camp. He ended up coming in and saying, he's just like, guys, you guys are all the rookies are going down to Orlando, and you're going to learn how to be a professional from the older players. And I thought that was a really, really cool thing to do, because I was always, I always took like, you have your bad coaches and you have your good coaches, and then you have your bad players and good players. But you always, one thing a lot of players don't go and look around, and being able to take a little bit of everything from everything. And that's kind of what I did. I went down there, and Todd Richards was down there, and a couple of the bad things that he did, I didn't take notes of that. He would always show up with a 6-pack of Mountain Dew for beginning of the game, and he would be in there drinking his Mountain Dew and not even warming up. The guy was a legend. He would just get on the ice, and he was just amazing. He never made mistakes. That guy was just awesome. But that's something that I didn't obviously take a couple of those bad habits, but I ended up going and kind of looking around to the other players. We had such an amazing team down there. We had some great players, great memories down there. And yeah, that gave me a very good year to get underneath my belt. And then when I went up to Atlanta, I remember Andy Sutton, who's like 6'9", basically, and me, the little midget out there. Like him and I just got along so well, and it was just easy. And we were like, I was like second player or third player of the game during that 40 game. One year I had 40 games. And to get my bonus would have been 41 games. And I got set down with when coach came in.
Bob?
Oh my God. What?
Was it Hartley after?
Yeah, Hartley came in. Yes. Oh my God. I try and forget that name. But he ended up coming in, and the next draft, he set me down within three games, and he brought up pretty big defenseman. But basically he at the draft, he ended up bragging that he just drafted 20 feet or 30 feet of defensemen. So back then was obviously was very unique, and I think I thought the game a little bit different than anybody else. The way that I did it, a lot of people go and watch the puck. I would always watch what the other four players are doing, because, and Sammy, don't be saying this on the air here. If you're saying it on the air, make sure that you're saying, "Oh, Mike Weaver." But I would always, if I was able to understand what the other four players' options were, not just where they were, options, I was able basically to tell the future. And I think that's one thing that I was very, very good at, is being able to tell the future. And it's kind of almost, I would never compare myself to Wayne Gretzky, but he would always be like, he never was going to where the puck was, but where the puck was going to be. And that's kind of what I did. I would always position myself in front of the net, because it's very tough to move a 6 foot a guy from the front of the net when you're 5'9". So if I was able to position myself that I'm able to engage with them when they're not even moving, because if I was to get engaged with these tall guys when I was moving, I would get friggin' just blown apart. So if I was able to stop them and be proactive, and that's kind of was my game, was being proactive, being able to I stopped Ovechkin. Like literally there was a couple times that Ovechkin moved to the offside. He went to the offside, and after the game he said it was me. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Ovechkin, like one of the top guys. What was I doing? I wasn't doing anything different. I wasn't magically going. I wasn't fast. Like, sure, I had a long stick, and it got it put on an inch every year I got older. But I'm going to say that one of the big things is, what did Ovechkin do? I looked at tendencies. He would go and curl deep in his zone, and he would flank out to the boards, and he would get a cross ice pass going 100 miles an hour. So what do? Well, I call the gap. I don't call it gap. I don't really like the name because it's somebody's ice. It's either yours or his. So if I was able to go and get my ice, and I was able to go up and be kind of within distance, like I don't want to be on them, because if they don't pass it to him, they pass it to somebody else because you're influencing it. So if I'm able to be in the vicinity of that, they might try and pass it to them and I would have it, or they won't pass it to him. And that's probably the objective that you want. You don't want it in his hands. So I just basically figured out the game. The Sedin twins, they do the same routes every single time. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Like everybody's just like, oh, they're difficult to handle. I'm like, no, they take the same routes. So it's all about, I think, looking at especially in playoffs. What does the coach do? He looks at tendencies. They do a whole entire watch all these videos and they look at tendencies. So that's kind of what my game was as a whole, was basically being one step ahead of the next player and coming up with different techniques that I was able to apply. I think Tim, you were first there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was me or Tom, but I'll just quickly, Tom, interject. Like two things. I wanted to go back and sort of add. I mentioned that Mike was a great first passer, and so was Brian Pothier. And I've said this before. Like, I wish I could find the video of Bobby Orr talking about what the most important attributes of a defenseman are, because that was his number one thing. As great as he was at initiating offense and joining the rush, leading the rush, he always felt his number one job was to find a forward to give the puck to help initiate the exits, the offense, whatever. And Mike was real good at that. That's number one. And number two, really quickly, I love your comment, Mike, about when you said I wouldn't watch the puck, I'd watch the other four players and I would be proactive. Because for me, that ties into what we were talking about before with the small area games. And again, I'm on my soapbox because I've said this many times. If there are young coaches out there that don't know what to do with their teams at practice, even if they're 8 years old or 10 or 11 years old, play some games and encourage them to do exactly what Mike did and what Tom touched on, really, with the four Finnish hockey rules. You either have the puck or supporting the puck, both offensively and defensively. So if you play small area games with your team and all you're saying to your players is, hey, try to figure out where the puck is going next. Whether you're on offense, where can it go next? And you be one of those options. Or whether you're defending, and if you're supporting in a supporting role, figure out where it can go next and take away one of those options. If you can just be in your players' ears about that all the time, they'll develop hockey sense like Mike had, and they'll be better players for it. So go ahead, Tom, if you had something to interject. And your mic's off, Tom.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it on.
You're good.
Oh, you got off again.
There. That's by far the most difficult thing to teach is game sense. Like that, that's what I'm really finding hard right now is for players to look at the situation, read the situation, because I think our system develops 1-on-5 players. So they basically go as far as they can without even really knowing who's with them. And then when they run out of options, they're all shut down. Then they look, but it's way too late then. So of course, Terry Johnson is coaching with me, and he's trying to get the D to, to know that there's always two options when they go D to D and this sort of thing. And they tend to want to go across the ice to the winger, way as far as possible. Of course, it's got to go through a few people first, and usually gets intercepted. But somehow in our development, we have to, make that working with each other a big part of the game, because it's really a weak part of the game as far as what I see players coming up. So.
Wally, you had.
Oh, my mic's off. Wally, you might
muted, Wally.
Okay. Al Ramsey, you can introduce yourself a little bit, Al. You're working with your U10 team in Massachusetts. And Al, I really believe what Mike and Tim has been talking about, Al is doing with his team. Al, I wonder if you can comment about your approach in terms of the players figuring things out and thinking for themselves. Because I typed in, Mike, you could play the game today if you were younger. The game allows for that. They're not looking for the big immobile D who protect the net all the time. So Al, can you introduce yourself and comment on how what you're doing is going to affect players growing up, and coaches have to keep up with them? Go ahead, Al.
Sure, thanks, Wally. So, Mike, it's really nice to meet you here. My name's Al Ramsey. I'm a hockey director at a town hockey association in Massachusetts. I'm originally from PEI, but moved to the States here about a dozen years ago. Hockey director at a town youth hockey association. I also coach a 10U team at a club association. I'm a coach developer for USA Hockey, so I do a little bit of stuff, in the Massachusetts district as well here. But it's been a really interesting conversation. So my day job is actually I'm a product owner for a web development team, working on a fairly large website. So it's pretty. I like your site. We've started using tools like that in our associations. Actually, trying to get our club association to get onto that. It's funny, like the way the system is here. It's almost like a two-tiered system, right? You've got town association that's like the nonprofit, like the regular minor hockey, and then you've got club teams that are kind of like the elite associations. But we've started tying everybody together at the town hockey association underneath like an age level director, say at 8U, and a 10U director and a 12U director, who kind of dictate the practice plans for those age levels. So they work with the coaches. We have group practices with like 3 to 5 teams on the ice. They'll set the practice plans, and we started using tools like yours to be able to do that. I think we still have a ways to go. Like in terms, I really like what you were saying about Kitchener, and having a power user where you can see who's in there, who's using it, and share plans that way. We've kind of taken a bit of an offline approach. Like we've tried to keep it as low cost as we can, right? So we're using some free tools and stuff, and Google Drives. But we really need to, I think to take it farther, we need to have something like what you were talking about, where we can have everybody get visibility to those plans on a single platform. But and I love what you were saying about being a smaller defenseman. I got a smaller aspiring defenseman here. I got a 9-year-old who's very undersized. I like what you were saying about my ice versus using the term gap. I wrote it down. We're gonna talk about that next week in practice. But in terms of what Wally was talking about, like I've said it a few times here, but we we've been trying to work with the players starting from the youngest ages, like 6, 7 years old, to really work on those 4 roles that Tom was talking about: offense with the puck, offense away from the puck, defending the puck carrier, defending away from the puck, and to try and do that without, starting with the cross ice stuff, to try and not assign positions. Because I find once you assign a position, like if you tell a kid he's a D when he's 6 or 7, he's going to run back and try to guard the net, right? And we ran into that a lot. So we said, all right, well, what if we send out the 4 guys and we just say, when a face-off happens, you guys figure out where you want to stand. We got 3 in the front, 1 in the back. And, closest to the puck is going to be our dog. He's going to go get the puck. The next 2 closest guys are going to be the foxes. They got to figure out where to go. And then we've got an eagle who's above the play, right? And we've kind of taken that approach and translated it to 5-on-5 hockey now at the 10U level. And, what I've been finding is that the kids do a really great job of interchanging, where a defenseman will join the rush, they'll jump into the offensive zone play, a forward will drop back and cover off at the blue line kind of thing. And, it's been, I've found a little bit of success with that, in our leagues and with our players. And we're trying to do that, we're trying to make that a standard approach across the association so that all coaches are kind of coaching the same way, as opposed to saying, you're D, you're going to stand on the blue line, you're going to fire it around the boards, which is the standard approach that you get in youth hockey, at least around here at the town level. So, I think using tools like yours to be able to get that message across will be really helpful as we go forward.
Well, for sure. Well, you let me know. I'll help you out with that to get you guys on board. Any drills, obviously there's it's time and effort in order to get these drills on board, but I could go and help you out, obviously, because obviously with Benelli helping me getting on this call, at least I could do. I love helping out people. So you let me know what you need. We could get you completely right on Coach Dem, and we could go and set up. So email me at mike@coachdem.com. We'll get you all set up with that. But that's I love when, like, a lot of people say that you can't teach thinking, and I completely opposite to that. Because I think the reason why I had such a long career was because of I started my hockey school, and when I was teaching my hockey school, my first hockey school that I had, we ended up just putting a mass email out to everybody, and I had one person that signed up, one person. So we said, okay, next year, let's go and figure out what we do best. And I'm like, you know what? I think the game better than most. So let's go and teach it. So I think me going and breaking down exactly what I was doing really did help me go and say, okay, that's a strength. Let's make it even stronger. So that would be a big thing. And I teach, so my hockey school is in July, and it's a 1-week hockey school, but I go over fundamentals. I reteach them how to skate on the first day. On the second day, I go over one-on-one. So basically even strength, and then I go odd man situations, and then offense from the back end on the fourth, and then kind of a summary day. But a lot of these things that I'm teaching is being aware, and it's something that I don't want to give away all my tricks, but it's like, even, how to be here and there at the same time. How do you be here and there at the same time? You can't physically do it, but you're able to be prepared. And instead of going 10 feet one way and 10 feet the other way, well, why don't you go halfway? So we're able to be here and there at the same time. So instead of, you're just going 5 feet here and 5 feet there. So there's a lot of little things that I have figured out with my game, and I apply it to the players. And I have people coming, well, before this whole last 2 years, the C word, I hate saying it now, but I basically have had people coming from all over the world, everywhere, Russia, Denmark, Finland, like everywhere, China. So, and they would stay for 2 weeks at a time. So yeah, so things have changed a little bit with that, but if you're interested, we're basically pretty much wide open. If you wanted to grab a few people to come and fly in a week in Toronto, you're more than welcome to too. It's defensefirst.com.
Might just do that. I got a sister in Toronto. I got to visit one of these days. So up in Richmond
There
Hill.
you go.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I feel like having coached I've been at the youngest levels for a long time, right? Like I've been coaching, starting from 4 or 5 year olds, learn to skate, learn to play, through 10U for like the last 7-8 years. And what I've really seen is like they want to think, and we are the ones telling them not to think. You know what I mean? Like a lot of coaches, they'll say you got to get back, right? Like you hear it all the time. You walk into any rink and they're yelling at the kids, get back, when the other team's got the puck, right? As opposed to, maybe it's time for the guy to guard the line, or be aggressive and go after and try to break up the rush. And they'll try to do that, right? But if they get burned, then it's like, then you try to correct them. So that's what I find is like we've been really playing with that, is to try and, if they make a mistake, to not jump all over them, right? Because maybe that mistake that they made in that situation is exactly the right decision in another situation. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a, I don't know. It's a really interesting game. I love coaching that age group. I love the 7, 8, 9, 10 year olds. It's awesome to get in there and work with the kids that young, So.
Mike, I don't know if this is. I think there's a coaching tool that you probably use with your hockey schools. Everybody here has run hockey schools for years, and I wish I knew what I know now if I was going to do them again. Because back in the day, we just ran.
I think Michael dropped. That's all. Mike Weaver.
Okay. Well, we used to run those schools and drills with just telling them what to do. This is how you play a 2-on-1. This is how you play a 2-on-2. And I think what Mike did, he looked at options beyond what coaches see. And that's what Daryl referred to, is he's a player who saw the game better than most coaches. Now, Tim was a defenseman. He could speak to that. He coached Mike, and he was that smart a defenseman. And when I listened to Daryl and he read his book, he said the student is the teacher. So Mike could have been a teacher for any coach he played for if the coach asked questions. So Mike, my point.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing though, I didn't realize what I was doing until I started with my hockey school, because I had to learn it. And it's just like Wayne Gretzky coaching in Phoenix. He wasn't the best coach because he just did it. And I don't think he took the time to understand what he was doing. So that's one thing that was probably a big advantage of me, was to and I have I used to have the pro guys come back every year, and they would work my camp because it would give them a refresh. And that's kind of what I did, is in preparation for the year, I would have in July, I would have my hockey school. So I'd be refreshing my mind of what I had to go and teach. So it's something that I think was pretty good. It really went and really helped me gather my thoughts in preparation for the year. I just have a few more minutes here, and then I have to take off. So
great, Weave. Great, Weave. It's been a treat, and I would add this because I like Mike's characterization of his curiosity when he was a player and always asking questions, and it really truly helped you be a lot better player, Mike, and a really good player. And we on here, we've talked about this before as a coaching group, that coaches, one of the biggest jobs of coaches, there's two of them in Wally's mind and our minds. Maybe the number one job is to transmit belief in your players, that you believe in them and that they can achieve things and be good players. But the second thing is that curiosity piece, where maybe the second biggest job of a coach is to stimulate curiosity in their players. So you invite them to explore their games by asking them questions, and then, like you did, having the players ask you questions in return. But so those two things really go hand in hand and are kind of really ready. It's like a really simple, ready guide for all coaches. Like, try to be positive and transmit belief in your team and your players, and try to stimulate curiosity so they become better players. So it's been really great to have you on, Mike, honestly.
No, for sure. Thank you so much, guys. I would say though, it's kind of almost like a therapist. You go to a therapist because, and to be honest, we had one with Orlando Solar Bears. It was probably the best thing ever. Somebody to talk to, a third party. It wasn't your coach, wasn't your assistant coach, and it wasn't your wife or girlfriend or whatever. So it was a third party. It was awesome. But with a therapist, what they do is they go and they listen to everything that's going on, and they're able to go and with their experience, they're able to go and explain why you're feeling that. With a coach that is just a coach, and it's not as experienced as just like that therapist, that coach is not going to know how to go and explain it. Because one of the things I've always done is if a player goes and asks, am I able to pinch him that? I'm like, yeah, sure, go pinch. Right. But then after he pinches and he gets beat, having to go and explain to him how to go and come up with different options, because a lot of kids are like, oh, and then the coaches get hard on them. But it's something that, like a therapist, the therapist knows what to say, right? And that's what's going wrong with the whole entire thing. A lot of coaches don't know and that's what we talk about the creation series with Benelli. We go and talk about, a lot of coaches don't take the time to go and understand the little parts of a drill, even though they might steal it from somebody else, but understanding the different parts of the drill, so that they might have to teach that little skill in order to go and use that drill, right? Instead of a coach going and yelling, angling, you should be able to teach it, and not just go and get a drill and like, okay, this is going to teach you drill and let the drill teach it. It should be the coaches go and teach it, and then throw in a real life experience of a drill that teaches that. So I think that it's kind of broken a little bit, but that's why associations have to understand sure, they might be losing $60,000 a year on getting a Kim, right? Getting somebody that's in charge of it. But I'm going to say that if they built that association based on development and not based on making money, they would be more into that. But it's, at the end of the day, I think to be honest, the Canadian, especially in the GTHL, model is broken. There is all about too much emphasis on wins, and we all know that. But I think it comes from a top-down approach of getting back to development. So,
Mike, the associations are starting to hire full-time people like Kim. Tim, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Calgary, the Northeast Association has hired Jesse Ale full-time. And the thing about Kim and the role she is in, she's a constant in the organization. As long as she's there longer than board members, longer than parents that play volunteer roles who influence and make decisions. She and any full-time employee, given the skill set of leadership that Kim has, can make a big difference in an organization and affecting coaches, but also affecting the leadership ability of volunteer administrators that are looking after associations. So you're totally right on commenting on Kim, and I believe that's the way the world's going to go in the minor hockey world. Especially
it's whether the minor hockey associations are going to foot the bill, because to be honest, it's basically yeah. Anyways, hey, honestly, thank you so much for having me, guys. Really pleasure for sure. I'll try my best to make it. I'll make it on next week for sure. And yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Anybody interested in it? Tom, if you're interested in, reach out to me, mike@coachthem.com. Anybody interested? Al, if you wanted to, we could go and get your association on board. Tim, if you have any amazing drills that you want some assistance getting them on, Coach Them, check it out. It is very, very easy to draw. It's the easiest program out there. I know I saw Tom them on Hockey Share. I saw your stuff on Hockey Share there. I think you're using Hockey Share there, but I'm going to tell you, it's be easier for us to get them over. But thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, great to see you.
Well, Mike Benelli, I want to thank you for getting him on. It was really great. Boy, I was deeply intrigued with the conversation that Tim had with him about his hockey IQ and his decision making, and how, what we're basically involved in.
Yeah, it was so funny. I mean, one of the things, like I mentioned, Mike, about the car ride home, like it's almost like my son's his own little like coaching clinic, for our 35-minute drive home. And one of the light bulbs that went off with me with Mike about just his IQ was Michael, my son, brought up. He's like, oh, what do you do? When that defenseman gives you a pass in your feet, and it just happened the game before where the pass was in his feet. He couldn't surround the puck. It got stolen from him. The kid went around the net. They passed it up high. They scored. They tied the game. He's all upset about it. And Mike, because he's and Tim knows this because he's been around Mike. But Mike says, well, there's two things you can do, right? Number one is you go break the other defenseman's wrist and say, don't give me bad passes like that ever again. And then the other part was just about the patience of letting the puck go past you and then surrounding it and then working up the ice. And it was so funny. We had actually developed a couple of small area games and some drills to do just that with all my defensemen. And literally in 2 weeks, we had solved a major problem of our level of surrounding the puck and moving it forward rather than retreating and bumbling and stumbling. And it was just those little things that Mike, and he's doing this over the phone. He's not even doing this through video, right? So I really think his, the knowledge of the game and his understanding, whether he was a big man or a small man, we actually work a lot with Andy Sutton together. And just hearing where Mike's IQ is about how he had to evolve because of his size. But Tim, I think you would agree, right, that it doesn't even matter what he did based off his size. Imagine if he was a little bigger and stronger, maybe how much better he would have been, because then he could do different things that he couldn't do physically. Oh,
absolutely. And say hello to Andy for me too when you see him next, because
we'll have him on next. He's good. He's, like I said, he's just he's so involved in the game now and at various levels, and he has that company Verbero that he's always talking about, but he really gets into depth. I mean, just like I'll call him about something and he'll just turn into hockey conversation. So it's really good, really good person and hockey mind.
Yeah, really, really terrific guy. I really enjoyed Andy as well in Atlanta. And I had to laugh a couple of times. I wanted to get in. There were, when I saw that Mike was going to be on, I started to think back, and there's a couple of funny stories about him too, and which it got me into a bit of trouble as a coach, I guess. We did some, but not a lot of line matching in Atlanta. Like, generally speaking, it didn't really matter what we did. I always used to tell Kurt, it doesn't matter what we do at the lines. We're just, we don't have the personnel to match up against anybody. But we were playing in Philly one night, and obviously, even as good as Mike was, one of the tasks kind of was to keep him away from John LeClaire, because, I mean, as good as Mike was and as strong as he was physically, That's not a matchup he's going to win very often, or you wouldn't put your money on him. But he got out there against Leclerc one time and got into a battle and literally got steamrolled. And Leclerc went hard to the net, ended up scoring, and I don't know, it might have even been the winning goal, like it was a 2-1 game or something. And I definitely heard about that after the game from the powers that be upstairs. I was like, well, whatever, stuff happens in a game. You don't always get your matchups, but it would have been a good story, a good Mike Weaver story to relate. But he really was a treat to coach, and he really was a terrific player, and it didn't surprise me at all to see him move on to Montreal and play as many games and as many years as he did there. I did want to kind of get in before he left, and maybe I'll touch base with him after that. I loved his sort of story about the therapist in Orlando there, and his parallels with the coaches, like how the therapist used their experience to really provide some answers. But what I wanted to relate to him was, what we've talked about a lot before on this platform is, as coaches, we don't always have to have all the answers, and we shouldn't feel like we have to have all the answers, because a lot of the most skilled therapists, and I have one living in this house with me, their job, and they know their job, is not necessarily to provide all the answers. Their job is to question, explore, and draw out information from the people, their clients that they're working with. And so that's what Mike found with his third-party therapist in Orlando. And that's what a lot of coaches can actually provide if they get out of the mode of trying to always have the answers and ask the questions that we talked about before. Approach, what were you trying to do? And have that discussion. Outcome, what happened? And then response, what can you do differently next time? And the players will have maybe some suggestions. You can have a suggestion as a coach, but if you use that approach, outcome, response cycle with your players, you become a good therapist, and you don't have to have all the answers. And the players appreciate the approach because they're part of the solution, and they become more able to think on their own. So I wanted to sort of relate that to Mike at the end there, but didn't want to hold him up. So maybe I'll touch back with him on that, because I think
Tim, I'm going to add at that part of your conversation. That's the first thing I'm going to add it to make sure I get it out, because really it's brilliant. Mike was a player who asked questions and wanted to learn, and that's why he's a great coach. He his wealth of information and knowledge he's able to apply, and I really appreciate everything he brought to the table this morning. And I think he's just filled with infinite potential and growth and development in what he's doing. I'm really glad Daryl got on. It was a little bit of a distraction because Daryl thinks differently at a level that you really have to get to know him and his material and spend more time with him to appreciate it. But I think they're both on the same page. I loved Mike's languaging, the terminology he used, the words, the catch words. And Al, you picked up on one that you're going to use. What was that?
He was saying that he hated the word gap, and he likes to refer to it as his ice. So
yeah,
I think that's good, because we've actually been working on that with the kids, right? One of the challenges that we've had is, when we're great at hemming the other team in at the line, but we don't defend the rush very well if the other team gets the puck and gets a little bit of speed.
Yeah.
Or you get beat because we've been letting them be really aggressive. So we've done a couple of things the last few weeks about trying to get them to defend the rush, because that's most of the goals against that. That's what happens. Like, a kid will get some speed up, and then they'll beat our defenseman, will get caught, and they'll beat him, kind of thing. So we were trying to work on you know, what is gap, like what's a lot, and what's, you know, how close do you want to get, that kind of thing, and before you start backing up. So I love that idea of, instead of using the word gap, my ice, because I think that the kids, there's a little bit of a knowledge gap, right? When you start using words like gap, they don't really know what that is, but they know what my ice and his ice, like, that's easy to understand, right? And that's a big thing with the little guys. It's like, you got to find the right way to explain things, because they'll, you know, if you're not really, really clear, they're not gonna understand what you're talking about, or there'll be a lot of room for misinterpretation.
Yep.
Great job.
I just wanted to add, Wally, so you can even stick it, you know, edit it out. But, you know, I don't claim to be a genius, and that whole approach, outcome, response thing is directly lifted out of a sports psych book that I've mentioned before. It's called Coaching the Mental Game. It's the best sports psych book I think I've ever read. It's by a baseball guy named Dan Dorfman. I think you can still find it. It's hard to find, but it's a really terrific read. And that little approach, outcome, response is one little chapter he has, and it is such an invaluable sort of coaching tool. And I just wanted to maybe ask Al and Mike really quickly if we might be able to do a quick Zoom. I don't know, maybe tomorrow or on the weekend sometime. I just wanted to bend your ear a little bit. Like, I'm going to be helping out someone in town here with a U13 girls sort of special teams practice. I have lots of ideas, but I haven't done a lot of coaching at that level. And I met with Ryan Hilderman yesterday, but I just maybe wanted to get a few ideas from you guys about how you approach, you know, the special team side of things with, you know, the U10, U12, U13 sort of kids. And my basic approach is sort of staying away from the structure, but more focused on the skills and concepts of, you know, the power play, penalty killing. But I didn't know if you guys had maybe, you know, 45 minutes or something to maybe bend your ear a little bit on that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be involved. I am, mornings pretty good for me. I mean, I'm heading up to Saratoga tomorrow afternoon, but in the morning I'm good.
How would you be, Al? Would you be?
Let me take a look at the morning. Just give me 1 second.
And we don't need a lot of time, even, you know, like say 30, 40 minutes. Sorry for stealing some time here, Wally.
No problem. Listen, Jordan Fenton is on. Everything you're talking about, Jordan and I have been talking about recently. And Jordan, I'm just wondering, have you got any thoughts to throw in? And even related to Tim, Jordan's operating on a power play with his midget AAA girls that is relatively unstructured. And I think that, I don't know if he wants to talk about that or anything else. Jordan, are you still there, or?
Yeah, Wally, I'm here. I had the camera off because I've been organizing a few things and listening in. It's a good conversation this morning, and I actually used the drill draw feature of Coach Them. I haven't used the other parts of storing it on there because, of course, I have other ways of keeping it and just have done things different. This was the first year that I've had full access to the site from it, but no, it's good and great to hear Mike's insights into the game and the way he sees the game and that. As far as the systems structure concepts idea, I really love that Marty St. Louis piece that came out just recently, that Wally, that you sent out. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Tim, how we started with our power play and specialty teams pieces. It's something that I've talked with Carla on as well. And it's the whole idea of providing the concepts first. One of the ones, I don't know where I got it from, whether it was from you, Tim, or Wally, or who it was, but it was the George Kingston supporting the puck in an L. And then the Wayne Fleming one with the L being that going for a short pass, then a long pass, or a long pass, then a short pass, and moving it around that way. And the whole concept of what are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve a 2-on-1 someplace on the ice that you can take advantage of. And then using lots of small area game type situations that allow for that. And it was actually one of my assistant coaches that was digging on the league website. And she goes, "Did you realize that we have the #1 power play in the league?" And I said, "No." I said, "I don't know what the other teams are doing." I said, "I assume that we were clipping along okay." And she goes, "Yeah, we're at that point in time, we were scoring at 40%. So that was pretty good." I said, "Well, I guess it's because that system that we have of locking everything down and making sure that everybody's in the right places." And that she laughed at that one. And actually another story to do with it was we were playing in a AAA tournament. We are only a AA team, Mike and Al, but we were playing in a AAA tournament in BC here over the Family Day weekend earlier in February, and we're playing against St. Albert AAA team. And Dan Ockberg, well, prior to COVID, won the last 3 national championships at the AAA level. And we were playing them. Their team isn't quite as strong as it was in those powerhouse years prior to, but still a solid team. And when we were on the power play against them, we maintained zone time and did everything with the exception of score on it. And Dan was telling me after the game, he said, our penalty killers were coming off. And he said, "Coach, how do we defend that?" He said, they said, we can't figure out what their setup is." And he was laughing, and he said to me, "Well, he said, I just told them you defend the middle of the ice." And it was exactly that, because they're so used to people setting up in a system of a 1-3-1 or an umbrella or an overload or whatever, that they know when they see that pattern to just how to defend it. Well, our girls weren't setting up in a pattern. And so they were able to move the puck and get some shots on goal and puck retrievals and those sorts of things. So long story longer, that's kind of the way we looked at it, Tim, was just the supporting the puck in an L idea. And then what are we looking for to create out of it? Looking for a 2-on-1 somewhere and how to support the puck. So
yeah, one of my guys that I used to coach with, he was my go-to, finding me video clips, and he sent me a clip last night of Colorado Avalanche's power play and Makar and that group, and there is zero structure. It's just there's just no way you can't defend it, because it's just you don't know who to take. So it's really unbelievable that if you have that, no matter what skill level you're at, if you can get the players to understand taking, to Mike's term, taking their ice and then being in a position, it's really just it's fun to watch. But I think it's just that we're in a middle ground of the evolution of the player really thinking they can do this without punishment, and it's and having success. But it's interesting.
I want to share a point, you guys. I've sent out a link to all of the Sharks. Daryl wrote an article and was relating to cheating versus calculated risk, and also a video. And I need to know whether you can view the video. And I have to say that of all the things in my lifetime that I've seen, that was the most, it just flipped the switch in terms of appreciating what Daryl's trying to do. And it is structure from the point of view, and Tom will appreciate this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he uses his daughter. She is a project, a laboratory for him. Everything he does with her is part of his experiment with all players that he works with. And the video that he put together, boy, I would almost like to talk about it amongst ourselves once you've seen it. But I think it relates to the power play discussion to a degree. If players are given the freedom to interchange 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's taken it to that absolute level with her, possibly to her detriment in terms of being evaluated and considered. But it's really quite amazing. So I sure hope some of you can get a chance to look at it. Tom, particularly because of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 idea, it really makes sense.
Wally, I just I did I don't know if you saw it. I did number one. I could watch the video. I actually hadn't read the article yet, but I did watch the video.
Yeah.
And I sent I think you and Daryl and whoever else was on the. I sent a response just because it was very interesting to watch. And one of my comments was it was exactly what you just touched on. Like, you know, I think it is a little bit to Ella's detriment that she's got so much of that going on in her head. Because one of my main wonderings is, as we've talked about before, if the other players on the team are not thinking and playing and being coached to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hockey, if you're Ella trying to do that on a team that isn't familiar with that concept, you will at times put yourself in a bad position. And part of the thing I think that would benefit Ella would be for her to gain an understanding of that a lot of those reads that she does are perfectly fine in any situation, no matter your coach, no matter the structure you're playing or not playing with. But there are going to be times when she makes a choice that is not going to be really beneficial to her or her team. So it's kind of a learning process and a learning curve for her. But it is a really interesting video, and I'll try to go back and read the article as well to get a little more sort of background on it.
Yeah, I was able to open it up too, Wally. So it's no problem. The communication piece is there, and just watching it and kind of dissecting it is will be interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a discussion about it at some point as well. Just have us kick it around.
Now, when I read the article, I thought the most brilliant part of it, Mike would have appreciated it, because he talked about, we've always taught defensive side. And he used the terminology, no, it's not always defensive side. It's defensive side, beside, and in front. So it's the kind of thinking that Mike Weaver would do as a player. So that's where I'm curious. So Daryl's looking at the game, and the article was on defensive hockey. To me, like risk reward, and my day of working with the national team and Bjorn Kinding, risk and reward was literally, there are times to dump it in. There are zones that you don't take risks in. And the game is changing. They're taking risks that I wouldn't have imagined. So I read that article with my mindset of having to play the Soviets and doing everything safe. And I see where the game is going, Tim. And I'm wondering, whether or not, and I talked to Daryl about this, I feel that the Calgary Flames and Daryl Sutter has probably engaged the defenseman more than any team in the league offensively. A number of times I've seen D, a number of different teams in the offensive zone to the goal line or to the net front. Yet they're more accountable without the puck than most teams.
They also have a goalie playing behind them who is freaking playing lights out, outstanding. And I know I've been on Markstrom case in the past because of his inconsistencies, and I'll be the first now to say he's been outstanding. And I just went and watched the highlights the other night of the win in Minnesota, and I actively thought, man, this is sort of becoming, and I haven't seen them play complete games a lot, so I'm just sort of going a little bit blind here. But now I'm sort of wondering, how real are they, and how much of what's going on is Markstrom? Because they gave up a boatload of grade A chances in Minnesota the other night and still came out smelling like a rose, and that's going to happen on occasion. And good goaltending is an important part of any successful team. But I do wonder a bit if they're not relying on him a little bit too much from the little bit that I've seen this year. And again, it's not a very complete piece of viewing research because I haven't seen a lot of their games. But I have.
Tim, I've watched them a lot this year, and that game, probably good scoring chances. You flip goalies and probably Minnesota wins. But overall, in the analytics, Calgary is leading in most analytics about scoring chances given up, zone possession, all of these kind of things. So generally, they give, they've got over 40 shots so many times. They've given up in the low 20s. That game was kind of, Minnesota was really desperate too because they're on a losing streak. And but Markstrom, in that game, he was incredible in that game. Yeah, he has been incredible for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned the analytics because that's what I was thinking. That was my second thought the other night was like, man, I wonder what their analytics does look like in terms of, quality scoring chances, giving up. And I literally thought, I wonder what their expected goals ratio is and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of the analytics I don't put a lot of stock in, but obviously, quality scoring chances against and expected goal kind of things are important stats. So, I'll take you at your word that, yeah, they're doing well in that area, which is obviously encouraging and makes me sound like an idiot. So, which is not that.
Oh, no, it's just that, you have your games where the other team is desperate, like Minnesota was, right? And they've got a really good team. And then Calgary happened to have a goalie that just stoned them. Yeah. So that's why they're on this huge winning streak, because right now they play great some games, but some games very average, and he bails them out. So that's the Montreal's Price there, kind of same thing. If you got an exceptional goalie.
Tim, it can be a far stretch, Tim, for you to see a Calgary team and know that the goaltender has been the biggest part of them. Think of how many years sophomore average team excellent in Calgary.
Yeah, well, I've said many times it's the single biggest thing they've been missing the last 8 or 10 years is just a high quality of goaltending. They have it for little stretches and then it falls apart, and it seems like, fingers crossed for everybody, that maybe this is the year that this is like a career year so far for Markstrom, and hopefully he can hold it together and avoid injury. They're solidly leading the league in goals against, which is pretty remarkable. So they all deserve a lot of credit in a lot of ways. Daryl, the defense, Markstrom, the group committed, to playing hard hockey and responsible hockey. So
think about if Edmonton would have got Markstrom.
I watched Toronto last night, and I watched Toronto often because I know Daryl works with them. And yeah, the goaltending differential there is significant and possibly affecting them. So I'm just trying to extrapolate 200-foot hockey and how well a team plays in both zones, both ends of the rink, and how committed they are on both ends of the rink. So it's really mysterious to see which teams end up, getting to the end. But certainly at this point in the season, the Flames seem to have got a lot of stuff together. However they do it, it is amazing. A lesson to be learned, because who would have thought Daryl would have had this kind of success, and we misjudged him in terms of his coaching, I think, in terms of what players are capable of doing and feeling free enough to do. Because offensively, they take a lot of risks, but they're pretty calculated and haven't been costly. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. And Mike, you had your hand up a while ago.
I just got to run, but I want to pick Tom's brain. So Tom, I need you to think about. I need a bunch of drills from your Finnish friends for these multi-color puck games. So just had a whole bunch of these made up, and I tried them out the other day. But I thought you'd be the great person to go to dig into the drill database there for some kind of some drills the kids have to think about with multicolored puck thought processes. So if you're,
what do you mean colored puck?
So I just have, some of the guys that I work with, I don't know if you know David Laszlo in Finland, but he has the youth program there. So he does so I sent them a couple of sets, and it's basically like each puck that's out there constitutes a different piece of the game you have to play. So if it's a green puck, maybe you can only take one-timers. If it's a red puck, you have to play the Gretzky game and get the puck behind the net. If you institute the purple puck, it's got to be, I don't know, you have to make double passes or, give and goes, something like that. So it's been fun to watch the kids try to think about the different aspects as the different pucks go on the ice. And without telling them, what it is that they're playing. Like, they just know, like, okay, red puck, they got to instantly know the puck's got to get behind the net. They're playing the Gretzky game. But if you come across any in your database that have multicolored or, games that are kind of based off of different scenarios, based off of what the constraint.
Yeah, I don't use pucks, but we play. I'll have like a tournament and a bunch of games going on at the same time, and each one maybe you can only score in give and goes, or you can only
in
score
the
on
game.
one-timers, or and they'll rotate, the different games is with little kids mostly. But I'll do it with the college players too, especially if I have 3 goalies. And yeah, we play a lot of games that there has to be certain things, like one of the more effective ones that play is you have to make at least one pass in each zone, so that forces players to support the puck and forces the puck carrier to get their head up. And so I do those kind of things all of the time.
Yeah, I'll search through your site then this weekend.
It's under the D in my stuff. The games are D and DT.
Got it.
That's a quote for games.
Well, thank you again. Well, thanks for having Mike on. That was great. I'm sure he'll join us again for sure.
All right. Really good.
It was great.
Okay. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Tim, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. See you, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, Wally, can you stop recording here? I want to
Okay.
give a little. I'm having the biggest